Most people who visit the Philippines never actually see it. They see the resorts, the curated beaches packaged into 5-night itineraries, the waterfalls with ticket booths and souvenir stalls at the entrance. They check the boxes, they take the photos, and they go home thinking they understand this place. But the Philippines is 7,641 islands, and the ones that don't make it into the travel brochures, the ones that haven't been named yet, or that disappear beneath the ocean every afternoon, without anyone watching, those are the ones that will change you. We are going to places where professional divers have descended with full technical equipment and been forced back, not because they ran out of courage, but because the cave beneath the river floor simply had no bottom they could find. We are going to a sandbar, 4 kilometers long, that vanishes completely every single afternoon, swallowed by the Pacific without a trace. We are going to a lake where the water scorches you from below and chills you from above, at exactly the same moment. And we are going to the only place on Earth where you are 100% guaranteed, not lucky, not hopeful, but guaranteed, to come face to face with the largest creature in the ocean. This is not a travel guide. This is the Philippines that the Philippines doesn't even fully understand yet. Number 1. Kalanggaman Island, Leyte, Visayas. The name of this island comes from a Cebuano word meaning bird, and from above you understand immediately why. 2 sandbars extend from either end of the island's core. When the tide drops to its lowest point, they emerge fully, stretching hundreds of meters in each direction, and the whole landmass looks exactly like a white bird frozen in mid-flight over the South Leyte Sea. It is one of the most extraordinary natural shapes you will ever see from the air, and it exists entirely by accident. No human hand designed it. No one planned it. The ocean simply built it over time without caring whether anyone was watching. But here is what the aerial photograph does not tell you. Here is what the postcard leaves out. This island, this beautiful, symmetrical, seemingly solid thing, does not hold still. Not for a single hour. The sand on Kalanggaman moves constantly, driven by the rhythm of the tides and the direction of the wind. Step onto the sandbar in the morning and you are standing on a specific shape. Come back in the afternoon, same place, same island, and that shape is simply gone. The sandbar has become something else. A slightly different curve, a narrower tip, a different angle reaching toward the horizon. The island is alive in the most literal sense. It is changing itself, continuously, with or without you. Paradoxically, despite the island's name, Bird Island, there are almost no birds here. The landmass is too small, the tree canopy too sparse. A tight cluster of coconut palms grows in the center, providing the only real shade for kilometers. That shade is precious. Without it, this place would be genuinely hostile. The sun here is relentless. It does not suggest heat. It enforces it. Local authorities allow exactly 500 visitors per day on Kalanggaman. No more. And every single person who sets foot on this island is handed a bag, their personal bag, and required to carry every piece of trash they generate back to the mainland. Not to a bin on the island. Back to the mainland. This single rule, this one inconvenient policy, is the reason Kalanggaman still looks like this. There is something quietly radical about a place this beautiful choosing to stay this way on purpose. In a world where every view gets monetized eventually, Kalanggaman is holding a line, and the line is working. Number 2. Aliwagwag Falls, Davao, Oriental Mindanao. Imagine a staircase. Now, imagine it built by a mountain over millions of years from raw volcanic rock. Now imagine water falling down every single step, all 132 of them, simultaneously. Aliwagwag is not a waterfall. It is a system. 132 tiered cascades, stacked in remarkably even formation, dropping a total measured height of approximately 340 meters. To translate that into something you can feel in your body, it is roughly as tall as a 100-story building, falling, continuously, stacked in steps, each one feeding the next. In the dry season, the water is extraordinary, crystal clear. You can see through it as easily as glass. The entire staircase structure is visible. Every rock tier, every fall, the water descending in long clear sheets that catch the light and fracture it into dozens of small rainbows hovering in the mist. In the rainy season, everything changes. The water turns white, violent. The sound, and you cannot fully understand this until you are standing close enough to feel it, is not something you hear with your ears. It is something you feel in your chest, in your sternum, in the back of your teeth. The entire mountain is falling, and you are standing at the bottom of it. Between the lower tiers, natural pools form, shallow enough, calm enough for people to bathe. And this is genuinely one of the strangest sensations in the Philippines. Standing waist-deep in cool, clear water while 132 waterfalls thunder above you, and the entire landscape around you is mist and jungle, and the feeling that the world above has been replaced entirely by water. In 2012, Super Typhoon Pablo, one of the most powerful tropical cyclones ever recorded in the Philippines, passed directly through this region. The destruction was catastrophic. Entire forests were stripped, roads disappeared, communities were erased, and Aliwagwag absorbed the storm, like it has absorbed every storm for the last several million years, and came back green. Not metaphorically green, actually, physically, defiantly green. Within months, the forest had reclaimed the damage. The falls kept falling. The water kept descending its 132 steps. The mountain simply did not notice the storm had happened. There is something deeply humbling about standing in front of something that old and that indifferent. Aliwagwag has been doing this since before our species existed. It will be doing it long after we are gone. We are, at best, brief witnesses to a process that has absolutely nothing to do with us. Number 3. Hinatuan Enchanted River, Surigao del Sur. This river has no beginning. No one has ever found where it starts. And as of today, despite the best efforts of professional divers using technical deep cave equipment, no one has reached the bottom of it either. The Hinatuan Enchanted River in Surigao del Sur is one of those places where the more you know, the less you understand it. On the surface, it looks like a short river flowing into the Pacific Ocean, fringed by tropical forest, extraordinarily beautiful but plausible. Normal, almost. But look into the water directly above the cave opening at the river's heart. The blue, there is not the blue of sky reflected on water. It is something else entirely. A color that comes from depth, from the column of water stretching down into a cave system that has never been fully explored. That specific shade, vivid, electric, almost impossible, is what local people and visitors have come to call Enchanted. And no photograph does it justice. Every photograph looks like it has been edited. Every photograph looks like someone has turned up the saturation in post. They have not. That is the actual color of the water. The source of Hinatuan is not a mountain stream. It is not a lake upstream. Fresh and salt water surge upward simultaneously from an underground cave system of unknown depth and extent beneath the riverbed, then flow directly into the Pacific. The water contains both fresh and marine components in proportions that vary depending on the tidal cycle of the ocean. It is, from a hydrological standpoint, a phenomenon that should not exist in the form it does. And scientists are still in the process of understanding exactly what is happening beneath it. Every day at exactly 12 noon, a bell rings, a single, clear note that carries across the water, and the signal it sends is this: everyone out of the river. Now. From the deep blue void at the river's center, from crevices in the limestone banks, from places you did not even know were there, fish appear. Not a few fish, hundreds of them, possibly thousands. They emerge from the deep. They rise from the bottom. They pour in from the cave mouth, and within seconds the entire river is alive with competing bodies, all surging toward the surface where food is being dropped. And then, as quickly as they came, when the feeding ends, they go back into the crevices, back into the cave, back into the deep blue, and the river returns to its earlier impossible stillness. After the feeding, the river reopens, and in the designated swimming area, the fish, remarkably calm, completely unafraid of human presence, simply go about their lives around you. They brush past your arms. They circle your legs. Swimming in Hinatuan is less like swimming in a river and more like being inside a very large, very blue, very wild aquarium. One that no one built. One that no one designed. One that the ocean, over thousands of years, simply made. Number 4. Barracuda Lake, Coron, Palawan. There is a lake hidden inside Camiguin Island that offers one of the strangest and most physically disorienting diving experiences on the planet. It is not named Barracuda Lake because of the number of barracudas in it. It is named Barracuda Lake because of the single, large, ancient barracuda that some divers have glimpsed in its depths. Alone, as far as anyone can tell, in a body of water with almost no visible marine life. And that is the first mystery. Why so little life? The answer is in the water itself. Barracuda Lake is one of the rare places on Earth where the thermal layering of the water is inverted. In most bodies of water, cold water sinks and warm water sits at the surface. In Barracuda Lake, that rule is reversed. Hot water sits below. Cold water sits above. As a diver descends, the temperature does not drop. It rises, rapidly, shockingly. Within just 1 or 2 meters of vertical descent, the temperature can shift from a cool, comfortable 28 degrees Celsius to an almost scalding 38 degrees or higher, a 10-degree jump in the space of a body length. Divers report the sensation of their lower half being burned while their upper half is comfortable. The thermocline, the boundary between the two temperature layers, creates visible distortion in the water column, like heat haze on a road in summer, a shimmering wall in the middle of the lake that bends light and makes the world below look like it is made of something other than water. The limestone cliffs surrounding the lake, millions of years old, do not stop at the waterline. They continue downward, forming underwater walls that drop to depths that are still being fully charted. Diving in Barracuda Lake is diving inside an enclosed geological formation, surrounded by ancient stone on all sides, above and below, in water that is simultaneously too hot and too cold depending on exactly where your body happens to be. The bottom is covered in a layer of fine silt so delicate that a single fin kick sends it billowing into enormous plumes that drift slowly through the thermal layers. Experienced divers here move with the kind of absolute stillness that only comes from years of practice. Beginners, without realizing it, create underwater weather systems with their fins. From the surface, from above the cliffs, Barracuda Lake looks like a small, serene body of water enclosed by rock, a secret kept by the island. And, in a sense, it is exactly that. Except the secret is not the lake's existence. The secret is that the lake is geologically alive, thermally active, and stranger beneath the surface than anyone who hasn't dived it can possibly imagine from the rim. Number 5. Oslob and the Whale Sharks. Cebu. There is a town on the southern coast of Cebu where you are guaranteed, not lucky, not hopeful, but mathematically guaranteed, to swim alongside the largest fish in the ocean. Not the largest mammal, not the largest creature with legs, the largest fish. Full stop. Oslob is the only place in the world with that guarantee. Whale sharks aggregate here in numbers and with a consistency that exists nowhere else on the planet in the same reliable form. Row 15 minutes from shore in a small outrigger boat, put your face in the water, and they are there. Every single time. Some of them up to 12 meters long. Some of them weighing more than 20 tons. all of them moving through the water with a slow, engine-like power that has no equivalent in any other living thing you have ever been near. Each whale shark carries a pattern of white spots on its body that functions with the same uniqueness as a human fingerprint. No two are identical. Researchers who study this population have cataloged individual animals over years using those patterns, tracking specific sharks, noting their growth, recording their movements. Some of the sharks that come to Oslob have been photographed so many times by so many researchers that they have unofficial names, recognizable faces in a population that is otherwise almost impossible to study. The skin of a whale shark is approximately 10 centimeters thick in places, one of the most formidable natural armors on Earth. Despite this armor, the whale shark is a filter feeder. No teeth designed for predation. No aggression. It moves through the water with its enormous mouth open, filtering vast quantities of plankton and small organisms with every sweep. The largest creature in the ocean, sustained entirely by some of the smallest. Regulations at Oslob prohibit touching the sharks, but touching them is beside the point. When a whale shark passes within 2 meters of you and sweeps its tail to propel itself forward, the displacement of water hits you like a wave. Your body moves, not because you were touched, but because the animal's physics extend far beyond its skin. You feel the whale shark before you see it, often. A change in pressure, a current where there was none, and then the shadow, and then the animal, and then the reminder, sharp, visceral, immediate, of exactly how small you are. People often say that encounters with whale sharks are humbling. That word does not do it justice. It is not humbling in the way that a beautiful mountain is humbling. It is humbling in the way that being completely wrong about something fundamental is humbling. You think you understand what large means. You think you have a reference point for scale. And then a 12-meter animal made of muscle and cartilage glides 3 feet beneath your feet, and every reference point you had is quietly, permanently revised. Number 6. Mount Pulag, Bengay, Luzon. The third highest peak in the Philippines sits in the middle of the Cordillera Mountains of northern Luzon. At its summit, the temperature can drop below 0 degrees Celsius. In a country defined globally by its tropical heat, by its beaches and its sun, by the assumption that it is always warm here, there is a mountain that gets frost. Mount Pulag rises to 2,926 meters. That altitude alone changes everything. The climate, the vegetation, the ecosystem, the entire experience of being in the Philippines. 3 distinct ecological zones exist in vertical sequence on its slopes. At the base, dense tropical rainforest, humid and dark and alive with the sounds of birds and insects. Higher, mossy cloud forest where every surface, every branch, every root, every rock is covered in thick green moss that absorbs sound and turns the landscape into something from a dream sequence. And at the summit, dwarf bamboo forest, where the bamboo grows to knee height, not the 10-meter walls you imagine, but low, thick, wind-bent grassland made of bamboo, an ecosystem that exists almost nowhere else on Earth. On the right morning, and the mountain decides when the right morning is, not you, the clouds that fill the valleys below rise exactly to a certain altitude and hold there, and you are standing above them. The entire lowland world beneath you is replaced by white. The valleys, the towns, the roads, the farms, all of it buried under cloud, and the summit where you are standing is an island, completely surrounded by white ocean, with other peaks visible in the distance as other islands, a sky above you that is the specific dark blue that only exists at altitude, and the sun rising over the edge of a cloud ocean that has no visible end. This image, the sea of clouds from Pulag's summit at sunrise, is one of the most recognizable in Philippine landscape photography. And yet, the reality of it still manages to exceed the photograph every time, because the photograph cannot include the cold, the altitude air on your face, The silence at 4 in the morning as you climb through dwarf bamboo in the dark, headlamp on, no sound except breathing and footsteps. The photograph gets the image. It does not get the experience of earning the image. Mount Pulag is not only a mountain, it is the headwater source for multiple river systems that supply water to communities across northern Luzon. What happens on this summit, the moisture, the cloud forest, the water absorption, feeds rivers that feed people, many of whom have never been anywhere near the mountain and never will be. Pulag works for the lowlands invisibly, continuously without acknowledgement. The sea of clouds at dawn is beautiful. The hydrology that beauty supports is essential. Number 7. Balabac, Palawan, Southern Palawan. To reach the southernmost archipelago of Palawan, you travel for a long time, by land and then by sea, across open water with nothing on the horizon, in conditions that remind you insistently that the modern world is not universal, that there are still places where the infrastructure of convenience simply ends. And then Balabac shows you what it kept hidden by making you work to find it. At low tide, when the water over the sandbars drops to just centimeters, just enough to cover the ground but not enough to disturb the reflection, the entire seabed becomes a mirror. Sky reflected in water, reflected in sky. The person walking across the sandbar is walking on clouds. The horizon disappears. There is no up and no down, no water and no air. There is just the image, endlessly doubled, perfectly symmetrical, of a world that looks exactly like itself and nothing like the planet you normally live on. Balabac contains islands that appear only at low tide and cease to exist entirely when the water rises. Not swallowed by waves or covered by sea surge, simply, the tide comes in by a meter or two, and the island, which was never very high to begin with, is gone. Flat blue water where solid land was 30 minutes earlier. The journey to certain islands in Balabac is therefore a journey planned entirely around tidal charts. You are not navigating to a destination. You are navigating to a time window. The water clarity here is exceptional, even by Philippine standards, and Philippine standards are already extraordinarily high. The colors shift from bright turquoise in the shallows to a deeper cyan further out, to the dark, serious blue of open ocean beyond the reef line. These colors are not filters, they are physics. They are what light does when water is clean enough to let it work. The difficulty of reaching Balabac is not a flaw in its character. It is the reason it still looks like this. Every hour of travel, every open water crossing, every tidal window navigated, each one of these is a barrier, and the beauty on the other side of those barriers has been preserved precisely by their existence. Balabac is the last paradise of Palawan not despite its remoteness, but because of it. Number 8. Mount Apo, Davao, Mindanao. The highest point in the Philippines rises to 2,954 meters above sea level on the island of Mindanao. Its name, Apo, translates variously as grandparent, ancestor, or chief in the indigenous languages of the people who have lived on its slopes for generations. The mountain is not simply a geographical feature to them. It is a family member, an ancestor who happens to be made of rock and fire. Mount Apo is classified as dormant, not extinct, dormant. The distinction matters. Dormant means sleeping, not finished, and the mountain makes this clear as you climb. Sulfur vents appear on the upper slopes, exhaling hot gas that smells of struck matches and rot. Boiling mud flats sit in depressions in the terrain, gray, bubbling slowly, making sounds that are somehow both industrial and ancient. You are not climbing inside a dead geological feature. You are climbing inside something that is still, slowly, operating. Mount Apo is one of the last strongholds of the Philippine eagle, one of the largest, rarest, and most threatened eagles on Earth. With a wingspan that can reach 2 meters, it is a bird whose physical presence in the sky is almost aircraft-like in its authority. The Philippine eagle does not share its mountain with any other apex predator. It is, at the top of its range, completely alone, and its population, numbering somewhere between 800 and 1,000 individuals in the wild, makes every sighting not just memorable but statistically significant. The mountain's lower slopes are lowland tropical rainforest, hot, dense, extraordinarily biodiverse. Higher, the forest cools and the trees begin to grow moss, first in patches, then in sheets, then in blankets that cover every surface, muffling the world into a kind of green silence. Above that, the vegetation thins, becomes more specialized, adapted to cold and wind, and the intermittent violence of the sulfurous gases venting from below. Standing on the summit of Mount Apo, the highest point in the Philippines, with the entire island of Mindanao visible in the haze below, it is one of those moments where the word perspective becomes literal rather than metaphorical. You are not gaining perspective on your life. You are standing in a position from which perspective is simply the only available mode of seeing. And the mountain, this sleeping, sulfurous, ancient, eagle-holding mountain, is entirely indifferent to your presence. Number 9. Tubbataha Reef National Park, Sulu Sea, 150 kilometers from the nearest land. In the middle of the Sulu Sea, there is a marine ranger station sitting on stilts above the water. It is the only man-made structure visible in any direction. The rangers who staff it live here for months at a time, rotated in and out by boat, surrounded on all sides by open ocean. Their job is to protect what is beneath them. What is beneath them is Tubbataha Reef, one of the most pristine and biologically dense marine ecosystems remaining on Earth. It was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, not as a courtesy, not as an aspiration, but because even by the standards of marine biology, a science accustomed to remarkable things, what exists here is genuinely unusual in its scale and its health. Enormous fields of Gorgonian sea fans, some of them taller than a person, branching in all directions into fractal complexity, carpet sections of the sea floor. The species count here is staggering. Over 300 species of coral, more than 500 species of fish, 11 species of shark, and populations of sea turtles so healthy that Tubbataha functions as a critical nesting site for the entire Western Pacific. The density of the shark population here reflects the completeness of the food chain. White-tip reef sharks are present in numbers large enough that encountering zero sharks on any given dive would be considered unusual. A reef with apex predators is a reef that still functions as designed. Tubbataha still functions as designed. Single dives here can include encounters with manta rays, whale sharks, tiger sharks, and hammerheads, a combination of megafauna density that is extraordinarily rare even among the world's best protected marine areas. The rangers on their stilted platform are not simply guarding a reef. They are guarding one of the ocean's last complete arguments for what health looks like, for what the sea was before we started emptying it. Number 10. Camiguin Island, Mindanao. There is an island in the Philippines where the number of volcanoes exceeds the number of municipalities. Let that settle for a moment. More volcanoes than towns. More geological hazard than administrative units. Camiguin Island is 47 square kilometers of land, and sitting within those 47 square kilometers are 7 volcanoes. The most prominent among them is Mount Hibok-Hibok, the island's highest peak and its most recently active volcano, last erupting in the mid-20th century with violence that destroyed communities and altered the coastline. Today, its summit is almost perpetually cloud-covered, and the mountain dominates the center of the island with a physical presence that goes beyond geography. You are always aware of it. Even when you cannot see it through the clouds, you feel it. The island's volcanic history is written in its sand. The beaches of Camiguin are black, the specific deep charcoal of volcanic material ground fine by centuries of wave action. Against the intense green of the coastal forest above the tide line and the impossible blue of the Bohol Sea below it, the black sand creates a visual contrast that is almost surreally beautiful. It looks deliberate, like a landscape designed by someone with strong opinions about color. In 1871, a volcanic eruption caused coastal subsidence. The ground along a section of the coastline literally sank. An entire village and its cemetery went with it, dropping below sea level. Today, the cemetery sits approximately 5 meters underwater offshore, and on calm days, with good visibility, the large concrete cross that marked its center is clearly visible from the surface. The sunken cemetery of Camiguin is the island's most haunting sight, a graveyard below the sea, graves below a graveyard, the island's dead buried twice over by geology. And then there is White Island, a small crescent-shaped sandbar that appears in the waters offshore, gleaming white, completely flat, completely bare of vegetation. It shifts with every storm. It shrinks and grows with the tides. It has no permanence, the exact opposite of the volcanic peaks that dominate the island behind it. The permanent and the impermanent sit within sight of each other. 7 sleeping giants of stone and fire, and 1 temporary ribbon of sand that might not survive the next typhoon season. Camiguin holds both of these things simultaneously, without apparent concern. Number 11. Cambugahay Falls, Cebu. There are colors in the natural world that seem impossible, not because they are rare, but because they violate your existing reference points for what water is supposed to look like. The pools at Cambugahay, a multi-tiered waterfall system in the forests of Cebu, are that kind of color. The turquoise here, and the word turquoise is genuinely insufficient, is caused by dissolved minerals from the limestone through which the water flows. The limestone filters the water, adds calcium and magnesium to the chemistry, and produces a color that the human eye is not entirely convinced is real. Every photograph of this place looks edited. Every photograph requires an explanation that begins with the words, "No, it actually looks like that." Around 10 in the morning, when the sun reaches the right angle and the light falls directly into the pools from above the surrounding jungle canopy, the surface of the water begins to scatter light in all directions simultaneously. The effect is that the pools look like they are full of dissolved sapphires. The light behaves inside the water the way it behaves inside a gemstone. You are not swimming in a waterfall pool. You are swimming inside a jewel that the mountain made. The limestone tiers, stacked like giant natural stairs, create a sequence of pools descending through the forest in steps, each one feeding the next, each one its own enclosed world of turquoise water and mossy stone and jungle canopy above. Rope swings hang over several of the pools, and launching yourself into water that color, from a jungle canopy, in a forest that generates its own cool microclimate, it is one of those experiences that sits outside the category of things that photographs represent. You can photograph it, but the photograph gets the color and misses everything else: the temperature of the air, the smell of the forest, the drop, the silence immediately after the entry. There is no manicured path, no branded experience, no queue management system. Just the forest, the water, the color, and the rope, and the decision, every time, about whether to let go. Number 12. The ones no one has named yet. And then there are the places that do not even have a category yet. Sombrero Island sits in the sea shaped exactly like a wide-brimmed hat. A limestone crown ringed by a perfect strip of white sand, connected to a sandbar at low tide that disappears completely when the water rises. It is a geological accident so specific and so improbable that it looks computer-generated from the water. The Quinones Green Hills were formed not from soil or ordinary rock, but from ancient coral reefs lifted from the seabed millions of years ago by tectonic forces. They are green when every limestone hill formation in this country turns brown in the dry season. Standing on their surface, you find fossilized coral and ancient shells scattered in the grass, traces of an ocean floor that is now a hilltop, the sea's autobiography written in rock at elevation. Aliwagwag Falls, discovered when a major storm uprooted the enormous banyan tree that had hidden it for centuries, is a waterfall that has no river above it. no lake, no obvious source. The water seeps directly from a cliffside of volcanic rock covered in ferns and moss, emerging in dozens of thin threads through the vegetation along a face nearly 60 meters wide. Local residents say the water, naturally filtered through volcanic rock, can be collected directly from the cliff face and drunk. Cold, sweet, and tasting of nothing at all, which is, for a water source, the highest possible compliment. And then there is Vulcan Point, an island within a lake within a volcano within an island within a lake. This is not a metaphor, this is the actual geography. A small volcanic island sits inside a crater lake inside the caldera of Tial volcano, which itself sits on an island in Lake Tial, on the island of Luzon. The water surrounding Vulcan Point is so acidic from volcanic activity that it supports almost no aquatic life. Steam rises from the ground. The geology here is not background. It is the entire foreground. These are the places that have no best-selling guidebook chapter, no recommended resort nearby. They exist because the Philippines is large enough and remote enough, and wild enough that even the people who live there have not finished discovering it. That is not a small thing. That is, in a world this photographed and this mapped and this visited, almost miraculous. The Philippines is 7,641 islands. We visited a fraction of them today, and we barely scratched the surface. There are reefs in the Sulu Sea that have not been named. There are cave systems in Samar that no living person has fully explored. There are waterfalls in Mindanao that are not on any tourist map. There are sandbars that appear only on very specific tidal conditions, a few times a year, visible to whoever happens to be on the water at exactly that moment, and then gone. The sandbar that shifts its shape with every tide can be destroyed by a single careless development. The Enchanted River, whose source no one has reached, can be altered by a water table disrupted from above. The reef that has no floor mapped by human hands can be bleached by water temperatures rising 1 degree too many. These places exist right now, in this form. That is not guaranteed going forward, but they do exist right now. The sandbar exists. The river exists. The turquoise pools exist. The whale sharks are still there every morning, 15 minutes from shore. The sea of clouds forms above Pulag's summit on the right mornings. Barracuda Lake burns and freezes divers simultaneously in its thermal layers. The sunken cemetery waits patiently below the waves while the volcano that put it there watches from the center of the island. The side most people never see is not hiding. It is simply waiting. And it is still, for now, magnificent. If this video took you somewhere, subscribe, because there is so much more to show you. Drop a comment below. Which place surprised you most? Which one do you want to see next? Until next time, keep looking past the brochure. Share.